Hey, yo, Josh, let me get a little bit of reverb. Yeah. J. Will. Yeah, I'm about that lifestyle. I talk green work, repping it all over. It's right on the t-shirt. Fan for a lifetime. Yeah, that's a long pass. Figure I would show some love right on the podcast. Turn this up loud and make sure you don't do nothing else. Cause if you're listening to us, then you're improving your health. My name is Jay Will. Welcome to the show, yeah. Wrestle, flow, yeah.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special bonus edition of Wrestling Reverb. I feel like I should almost take out the wrestling in this title and just call this Josh and Kevin Reverb. Kevin is also here.
I like that name. I do kind of like Josh and Kevin Reverb. Anything to put the name out there.
Update the graphics, it's changing.
Sadly, it doesn't have the same ring to it as Wrestling Reverb
it
does.
Doesn't.
Not as twangy.
It doesn't. But we're not going to be talking about too much wrestling today. I probably will tie in a few little things into wrestling just because it does relate to a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about. So this episode will be, you'll hear Kevin's voice as well. Don't worry, he'll still be here. He'll pop in every now and again. Just to chime in on some things, but I wanted to do something a little different today. Like I said, I'm not going to be talking too much wrestling, maybe a little bit here and there just because it ties in, but I'm going to speak completely from my experiences and myself. I'm not going to talk for anybody else because this story is different for everybody, but today I want to talk about my journey to the person I am today. My struggles with mental illness and just stuff that's gone on in my life that has kind of shaped me to how I think and how I am as a person in this day, 2019, how I am. There's a reason I am like I am, like so positive and stuff like that, is because I've seen other side of things that wasn't the best days, but I think it's very I need to just say that I'm going to be 100% honest on this. I'm going to be 100% open. I'm not hiding anything. I'm not shying away from anything because I think it's important to talk about this kind of stuff because you never know who's listening. You never know who you're going to help. You never know. And I think in my situation is that I've pretty much gotten on the other side of things. I can see this from an outsider's perspective almost in terms of just looking back. But so many people shy away from talking about this kind of stuff, and I think it's okay to sometimes shine a light on the dark if it's going to create light. Before we get started on my kind of take on my struggles and stuff like this, I know, Kevin, you've been open on your blogs about mental illness and your kind of journey with that. Do you want to just give a brief kind of rundown of what that was entailing, if you want to?
Yeah, sure. So, about, let's say a year ago, maybe a year and some change, I was in school. I was living in an apartment with my friends. I was having a good time. But slowly I was sinking, unbeknownst to me at the time. I was sort of sinking a little bit. My grades started to struggle. I was struggling to pay the rent on my apartment. I was sinking. I was shying away from people and from all the things that I used to love. I was just sort of spiraling out of control. And so after a few months of just dealing with it by avoiding it, just by letting it sit and fester and trying to push it down and down and down, but eventually it comes back up. It always comes back up. You can't really talk this stuff down. And I got into a place where I was sort of in a dangerous position, and I was away from my family. I was away from most of my friends. I was just struggling really badly, and eventually my mother came out and she picked me up from school and brought me back home. Or otherwise, I'm not sure what would have happened if she hadn't come out and got me. So I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and heightened anxiety, which I think are very common. I think there's more depressives and more sufferers out there than we know, because like you alluded to, it's not something people like to talk about. People always say mental health is tricky. They say it's a tricky subject. The only thing that makes it tricky is that we don't talk about it enough. Like you mentioned my blogs. I started writing mental health blogs after my first stint in the hospital. I was hospitalized in September and again in November. And in the middle of that is where I started my blog. And in addition to the wrestling stuff, I started trying to write weekly mental health pieces about, my struggles and sort of everything I go to, struggles with motivation, anxiety, depression, just all sorts of things, loneliness, fear, all the things that really are tied into my mental illness. I've tried to write about, but as of now, I'm still sort of in the thick of it. I don't think and it's something that I'm not sure if I will ever stop dealing with. I have good days and I have bad days. I have some really good days. I have some really bad days. Honestly, yesterday wasn't a very good day for me. Honestly, it's just like it's unexplainable. It's like the snap of the finger, and I could go from being like really positive and happy and wholehearted to just being down in the dumps. And I think that I think that sums it about up. If you have any questions, feel free to ask Josh. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your story, because I think that it's really brave what you're trying to accomplish here. I think that it's people like you that take the initiative to bring mental health into the light that is ultimately what's going to help a lot of people deal with their struggles.
Yeah, that's kind of what my intention is that, listen, I'm not saying I have lots of viewers or listeners. I'm not saying that at all, but out of the small group that listen to me, you never know who you're going to help. You never know who's going to stumble across this. That is and just sharing my journey, because the people that do listen, I like to be 100% the authentic version of me, and I can't do that if I don't, I can't do that if I'm just showing you the happy side. There is a different side to me. I am genuinely a fairly happy person. I'm not a crazy person, and I'm like 100% happy all the time. But in this this time of my life, I am a fairly happy person. But sometimes you got to see the bad to get to the good, at least in my eyes. So I'm just going to kind of take you through a little walk in what kind of happened to me as a teenager and stuff like that. So I was always a fairly social, happy kid, like preteen. Like I was always wanting to be, social with other kids. There was always that one, singing karaoke, and, just, I was a bit of I liked, the attention I liked, always just trying to outdo everyone else. Like, I'm just like, no, I'm like happy and all this. Always remember that as me as a kid. I was always a fairly happy kid. Grew up I was the middle child, older brother, younger sister, happy parents, all of that kind of stuff, right up until I was about 11 or 12. And I think where things started to go weird for me was my parents got divorced, and it was a rough divorce. It wasn't a fun divorce. We were all kind of involved. And I was at that age where, 11 or 12, you don't fully understand what's happening, but you also know something's up. And in my eyes, all I seen was that everyone was kind of steering towards my mum. And I was like, this isn't fair on my dad. I'm going to go with my dad. So I moved with my dad, moved away from my siblings, moved away from my mum. And that's when things started to go a little bit weird for me growing up. I didn't realize it at the time. I realize it now, that being away from my siblings especially was really tough on me, especially going into my teenage years. It was just me and my dad. I didn't have any people around my age other than at school to be like, yo, this is, I'm kind of going insane on my own at home. But, growing up, 14, 15, 16, I didn't have... The relationship with my dad started to sour really badly, and it was not healthy at all. I'm not going to go... This is the only thing I'm not going to be 100% honest with you about, is just... Well, not honest, just not tell you exactly every detail, but... just put it this way, there was a lot of stuff that went on between me and my dad as a teenager that kind of started to make me go into a really depressive, unhealthy state. My dad was a heavy alcoholic, and I was the only one in the home with him. There'd be a lot of times where I'd wake up my dad to take me to school and he wouldn't wake up, and just stuff like that. He didn't treat me very well. He wasn't a parent. I had to kind of be forced to grow up fairly quickly at the age of 16, 17. I was pretty much caring for myself at this stage. But that's when things started to go really weird for me. And that's when I knew that I was starting to get really down on myself. I stopped going to school. I didn't want to see any of my friends. I was just kind of alone. I had a relationship with my mum, but I didn't really see her all that often. I had relationships with my siblings, but again, didn't see them all that often. It was just me and my dad. So yeah, things started to go bad. I got to a point where I was pretty suicidal. It was intense, and that lasted for me for right up until I was 18, 19 years old, when I couldn't take the stuff from my dad anymore, and I decided to move out of home. And I moved out with a friend, but I just thought that would solve all of my issues. I had, like yourself, Kevin, I was in and out of the hospital, and stuff like that. There was a lot of stuff going down over those few years, but I thought once I moved away from my dad, everything would be fine. But I realized that 19, 20, those were some of the hardest years of my life, because I couldn't escape what had been going on during my teenage years. A lot of the time when I was first kind of going through it, if I would open up to anybody, whether it be grandparents or even my mum, it was always the typical, you're a teenager, you're just going through that stage kind of deal. And so I just thought it was normal. But when it was starting to get suicidal and really, really bad, that's when I knew I needed help. And like I said, in and out of the hospital. Anyway, a lot of stuff went down. I don't really have a relationship with my dad even to this day. We don't really talk anymore, but just because of all the stuff that's happened, in this day it's made me a healthier person than what I kind of was experiencing. But back to where I was after I moved out, and I was really still quite down. I knew that I needed to do something. And this is where it gets different for everybody, because a lot of people can't get out of this. Like you said, you're still struggling and stuff like that. I remember this day where I was, again, quite depressed and quite suicidal. And I remember going through stages of, thinking about that kind of stuff and being like, there's no point in me being here and all that kind of stuff. But I just remember waking up one day. I'll never ever forget this day. I woke up in the middle of the night and I was just laying there and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm literally out of the situation that made me so down, that made me so depressed. And I just kind of laid there and I remember being up for hours, just literally just thinking about everything and being like, what's going on? Like, I need to do something to get out of this because I'm out of everything. I'm literally, on my own. I can kind of beat this, and that's, it didn't happen just like that. It wasn't just, miraculously like, oh, like I'm better now. I just remember taking active steps to see counselors, to, really make the effort to want to make myself better. And it took some time, but I come out on the other side of it. I never went through any kind of medication from doctors and stuff like that. I did this all on my own to a certain degree. Counselors helped and stuff like that. But the reason I get so positive and things is because I know what it's like to be on the other side of things. I know what it's like to be at your darkest days. And listen, when I was going through all of that, I couldn't find happiness in anything. But I guess this is where wrestling kind of ties in, because out of everything that happened, the one consistent thing, the one constant thing that always kind of took me out of whatever was going on was wrestling. I remember being in the hospital and my nana actually come in with an iPad, and my nana, I wasn't really talking much, I wasn't really doing much, and I seen Nan brought the iPad in, and I was like, yo, can I play on the iPad? And I just remember the first thing I did was hook up my personal hotspot, so I had data on my iPad, and I just watched wrestling. My nana sat there and I didn't say anything to her. I just watched wrestling because it made me happy. It was the only thing that really, I'm not trying to sound cliche or trying to sound like dramatic or anything like this. I'm just sharing my experience, but it really did take me out of everything. Wrestling helped me a lot. It's the only the consistent thing that's always just a way to zone out. I think that's important to have those things, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be wrestling, obviously. It can be, taking your dog for a walk, or it can be playing a video game, watching a certain TV show or a movie, or whatever kind of takes you out. I think it's important, in my experience, it's important to have some form of distraction, because I pushed a lot of people away in that time. I think, Kevin, you can, from alluding to before, is that when you get in these, I know our experiences are different and stuff like that, but when you get down on yourself and you get to that state of mind, you don't want to be around anybody. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, because when you're around people, at least in my experience, being around my friends was tough because I saw how happy they all were. And I knew that I couldn't reach that level of happiness anymore. And as a result, it just made me feel worse. So I distanced myself from everybody because I figured, why bring everyone else down to my level when I could just, do my own thing and, let everybody else be happy. And I wanted to be happy, and I saw it and I couldn't do it. I couldn't push through, and that just made me want to get away.
Yeah, it is like that. That's exactly kind of how I felt as well. You were kind of just looking around and you'd be like, why can't I get like that? Because being around people like that, especially if, in my experience, the very few people I did open up to would always just kind of tell me, oh, just stop being like that. And it's like, I can't. I'm trying to open up to you, trying to be honest with people, and it was always, you're silly, or shut up, or don't be like that, or just be happy. It's like, well, that's my intention. I don't want to be like how I was and stuff like that. I think a lot of the thing too is when I moved out of home and thought everything would be okay, and kind of it's like, oh, it's just the relationship I had with my dad, and that issue. I thought that'd be fine, but what I realized is that I was also going through a very bad state of loneliness. At that point, I had fresh, pretty much 6 months after I moved out. It was still fairly fresh after a long a long-term relationship. I had broken up with her. I had no one. I felt like I had no social life. I had not a lot of friends. The ones I did have, I kind of didn't keep very close because I was always afraid to get too close to people because they were so much happier than I was. It was a real time, and I don't look back on it now. Obviously it wasn't a fun time and I wouldn't like to experience it again, but I also wouldn't change it. I really wouldn't. It's made me how I am today. I am a genuinely quite a happy person. I've kind of come through that stage in my life, especially in the last year. I still have my moments like everybody does, but it's certainly not to that extent anymore. And I keep hearing, as this kind of builds a Brainbuster, which starts next week, a shameless plug in there. I have heard all the people on Brainbuster that, if they're hyping up our show, a word that keeps coming up when describing me is positive, and that just makes me so happy to hear, because there was a time in my life where I was legitimately the opposite of that. I didn't have any kind of positive kind of outlook on anything except wrestling. Wrestling was my only time where I didn't think about that kind of stuff, but it makes me happy to be like that. I didn't realize I honestly was like that, but I guess I'm just always looking on the bright side of most things. Not everything. Like I said, I'm not a crazy person, but I always try to look on that kind of side because I know what it's like to be way worse than a wrestling product. And I'm not saying that there's a lot of people that had it a lot worse than I did. There's a lot of people that have it a lot worse than Kevin did. There's always someone that's had it worse than you, but that's my kind of experience with it. And to me, I don't want to shy away from that kind of stuff, because being on, for the most part, the other side of it, you don't know who you can help. I know I've had people come to me, and I'm always will be here for people if they want to vent and just talk, because that's when I do open up to people, is when I've never, well, at least now in the last couple of years, I don't hide anything from anyone. Anyone that asks me about my struggles with growing up and stuff like that, I'm always very, very, very honest with people. I don't hide any kind of detail about it, because I just don't see the point in doing that, at least anymore, because everyone has struggles. Everyone has a reason why they're the person they are today, and I just think it's important to talk about that kind of stuff. And I know I've been a little bit scattered with some things. I just want to let everybody kind of know, to whoever is listening to this and they're going through any kind of depression or anxiety or just sadness or whatever, I want you to know that you may not know me as a person, you may not know me in a physical sense, but I'm always very willing to talk about anything anyone wants to talk about, and just even if it's just a vent and you don't want me to say a thing, sometimes it takes the power out of it. I know it's hard to talk about, and Kevin can probably echo this as well. It's very hard to talk about this kind of stuff. It really isn't easy. But if you talk about it, it kind of takes a little bit of the power out of it to let it eat at you. Because that's the worst thing you can do, is just let it eat at you. Always talk to a friend, go to a doctor, a counselor, whatever it may be that you think will help you. just talk about it, even if it's just writing it down. I noticed a lot of the time I just wrote stuff down, or I typed a little note in my phone just to kind of, it's out of your mind, it has no power. I don't know if that experience works for you as well, Kevin, but I just feel like talking about it with someone does help.
Oh, it absolutely does. That was my biggest, I think, weakness through everything I went through, was that I was unwilling and just unable to talk to anybody. I shut myself off from just about everybody. I didn't even talk to my parents about it. I would just tell them everything was fine, whereas I was sinking into a really dark place. So I couldn't agree more with the fact that talking about it makes it make it feel better. It took me a while to realize that, but it does help to get it out in the open, because then it's no longer on your mind, where it's the most dangerous place it could be. Instead, talk to a friend, talk to your family, go see it there. I see a therapist and a psychiatrist every week, and I always come out feeling better than I did when I went in. It's so important to talk about it and to deal with it and not avoid it and not let it crush you.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's why when I kind of DM'd Kevin the other day and was like, yo, I just feel like it's necessary, because I'm trying to put as much of Josh into Wrestling Reverb as I possibly can, and good, bad, the ugly, the pretty. I want to kind of share my journey to where I am today, and I said to Kevin in a DM, I was like, yo, I want to do this little special thing, just to kind of talk about, my kind of journey and my struggles with, depression and suicide and all that kind of stuff. I have a family of people that have, not all, but they have dealt with this in their own kind of way, and like I said to you before, it's even to this day, I don't really have a relationship with my father, and I don't know if we'll ever really mend our relationship. Like, we do not speak to each other anymore. But at the same time, as people can relate to this, because a lot of people don't have relationships with their parents or their family of some matter. I don't know if we ever will, but at the same time, I'm a much happier person now, and I just don't know if we ever will mend that. We had a lot of issues and stuff like that. It's just to let everybody know, it's just because someone is, in my experience, just because someone is has the title of family, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to let them treat you a certain way just because of that title. In my experience, I'm just talking from myself here, everyone's different. But in 2019, I feel like I'm a much happier person than I was 4 or 5 years ago. And I think that says something just about how I've kind of dealt with things, and how I've kind of have this last year or so, I just have this new outlook on kind of how I look at life, really, in every sense of the word. I just try and make the most out of everything. 2 years ago, I would have never done something like this. I would have never done a podcast. I just would have never done it. I wouldn't have been in the state of mind to do it. I wouldn't have been a happy enough person to do it. I wouldn't have had the confidence to do it, because, man, that kind of stuff takes self-confidence. Oh my lord, like, it takes you out. It really, you have no confidence about yourself. Especially as, it just happens. People do find out about this kind of stuff, and you get embarrassed and you get uncomfortable, and it feels like it's making it worse. But hey, I don't care who knows about my story anymore, because it just is what it is. It's a part of my life. Wouldn't change a thing, because it's just made me have this kind of outlook on how I approach life now. I've got to look at it in a different way. I'm genuinely smiling and generally just having a good time. Because of all this, Some things will never change. I'm not a huge drinker because of the issues that my dad had. Growing up, seeing that, I drink, but I'm not a huge drinker. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not a huge party rat. I'm not big into that kind of stuff. I don't mind it sometimes, but I'm pretty much a homebody. I like spending time with Josh. Really, I just like playing video games, going to work, doing this podcast, and watching a shit ton of wrestling. That's really what I do. Like I said to you before, wrestling is a constant. It's something that's never changed. It's just always been that level of consistent of happy. And I think that's important. I do honestly think that everything kind of revolves to, in my life, back to wrestling, whatever it may be. So, as a 23-year-old now, I feel like I'm the happiest I've ever been, which is a good thing. I'm just enjoying life as it comes, because I've been on the brink of it not being a thing anymore, and at that point in my life, that kind of stuff didn't scare me. Like, not being here and stuff like that didn't scare me. But now I don't even think about that kind of stuff anymore. I just kind of enjoy living and enjoy being here and just trying to make someone happy. If anything, I like bringing happiness. I like having a laugh. That's just how I am. But yeah, that's kind of my kind of story, and I know it was a little bit scattered, Kev, but for the most part, very open about anything. And if anyone has any questions, Kevin, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. But if anyone has any questions or just wants to talk or just whatever it may be, I am more than happy to talk or just let you vent or help you what my kind of experience were, what helped me, what didn't. I'm always here to do that, so please don't feel shy about asking, and never feel shy about talking about this kind of stuff, because too many people hide it away, too many people tuck it under the rug. Just shine a light on this kind of stuff, because you relate with more people than you don't, because a lot of people go through some extent of this in their life. So but Kevin, if there's anything you want to ask me, feel free to ask me now. But
I don't think I have any questions. Just, this is incredibly brave of you to do. I'm proud of you for doing this. I'm jealous of you because you have such a good head on your shoulders, and you're so open and candid, and that's incredibly refreshing. I'll admit, I still have trouble talking about stuff.
Yeah, I know.
I've gotten to the point where I could talk about, I've gotten to the point where I could say everything I need to say, but it doesn't always come out so easily.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. For me either.
And a big part of that, this was something you touched on earlier, was the embarrassment factor of it. So that was a big fear for me when I realized sort of what was going down, that what I was suffering with. Part of me was like, well, if I can't be me. I can't be the depressed kid. I can't be the anxious kid. I can't be that. That's not me. If my friends find out, like, what do they think? If my family finds out, what do they think? And that weighed on me a lot. And, at some point you just realize you have to take care of yourself before you take care of other people. And you have to think about what's best for you. And what's best for me, what's best for you, what's best for everybody is being upfront about with your struggles and handle them head on. That's the best way to do it. I can't endorse that enough, because it's really helped a lot of people. It's helped me. I know it's helped you, Josh. And it's so important. It's such an issue that needs to be brought into the forefront of society, is mental health. I think mental health is in a bad state right now. I think a lot of people are going through this and just don't have the resources or the strength to get help. And so, yeah, my DMs are always open to anybody who's listening out there who needs help, who needs to talk, to vent, just to, even if you just want to talk wrestling, talk, whatever, just to get your mind off of things. Wrestling has always been, like it is for you, Josh, it's always been sort of that constant source of happiness for me.
Yeah.
Where I could like, I could probably say like wrestling saved my life because it's just I remember I too have a story about watching wrestling in the hospital, and I remember like basically not locking down one of the TV rooms, but basically telling everyone that at Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, that's my time to watch TV. I was basically told, you guys can watch wrestling with me, or you guys can go back to your rooms. I wasn't taking no for an answer. But it was there. It was
That's
there
the
for
Kevin
me.
I like to hear.
Yeah, right. It was there for me when I didn't think anybody else was, and that's wrestling for a lot of. It's wrestling for a lot of people. I've noticed is that it's there for us no matter what.
Yeah, I have so many. Listen, we're always going to get this for as long as we watch wrestling. There's always going to be that person that's like, why? It's fake, it's this, it's that. It's like, I literally now, the person I am today, would turn around and say, you don't know what wrestling has done for me. You have everything that you like, I have everything that I like. And wrestling is, I've said this many times, wrestling is my first love. I do honestly mean that. And I hope people that listen to this realize that even more now, because it really is my first love. I've genuinely fallen in love with this product, and I don't really see myself, hey, we have our issues with it. I have my issues with wrestling all the time.
Yeah.
It's like a relationship. But
It's trickier. It is. It's tricky.
it is. It's complicated sometimes, but I love wrestling, and it's helped me so much. I pretty much watch wrestling 24/7 at this stage. I'm surprised I just don't have it playing constantly in my house, but, well, it pretty much is. But it just helps me. It's helped me. It continues to help me whenever I have a day where I'm just not feeling the greatest. I put on wrestling. It doesn't even matter what it is. I just put it on, and it really is a zone to... it just zones you out of your life. You don't think about anything else. I literally can just sit in front of a television and watch wrestling. And, I genuinely look forward to, it is a big part of my life, obviously. And it's just because it reminds me of where I was and where I am. And I think that's a good thing to do because, like I said, it's important to not shy away from this kind of stuff. And I hope when I kind of put this episode out, that people don't just think I'm just saying this or just, looking for some... It's not a sub-story. It's not just a way to, oh my god, like you're so... I'm not looking for that at all. I'm just genuinely putting this out there to go, hey, if you've experienced this, it's okay. And you'll get through to the other side. And even saying to you now, Kevin, I know you said you're not on the other side yet. You're definitely still going through all this kind of stuff. But, like, just between you and me, you will get there. I can hear the way you talk about this, and these are just the beginning steps of getting kind of through it. You just have to keep constantly committed to wanting to be a better version of yourself, I guess, or just be a happier version of yourself. You'll get through the other side. It will happen. I know it will. I mean, I can hear it in your voice that you generally want to be much happier, or you're on that stage of getting much happier than you were, which is a good thing. And if you have distractions like wrestling or just chatting, I can genuinely tell the podcast helps you, because we just chat for 2 or 3 hours and you're completely zoned out of whatever is going on in your life, which is what I'm most happy about, is that if I can help in any way, I guess the podcast would help you.
Yeah, I look forward to doing the show with you so much. It really helps me just lock everything else out of my mind for an hour or two. And, if I'm having a bad day, I know that I'll come out of Wrestling Reverb on the other side feeling good again, because we'll have just talked for an hour and a half about wrestling. And that I'm never going to turn down an opportunity to do that. I'm never going to be let down by an opportunity to do that. The feeling is never going to wear off. You know, I think this is genuinely one of like the coolest things in the world that we're on a wrestling podcast right now. Even if this episode wasn't wrestling geared, this is a wrestling podcast. I think it's one of the coolest things in the world that we do this. I think this is awesome, and that's never going to go away. Every time I boot up Skype and we hop on the call together, I goosebumps. The hairs are standing up my arms. I got butterflies in my stomach. I'm nervous, but I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we can do this, and we've been doing this. I've been doing this long enough where I've alluded to this many times. I've said to you many times, I feel like I have a little bit more to talk about than just wrestling, and trust me, majority of me is wrestling, and this is always a wrestling podcast. Don't worry about that. But it's okay to be ourselves and have other kind of conversations and stuff, just because Wrestling Reverb is still Josh and Kevin. There's still people behind this, of course, and there is other things that happen in life. So I don't think the beauty of what I have created and what we have become is that I can talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about, and whatever mood I'm kind of in, it doesn't really matter. I can talk about anything. It's just genuinely always going to be wrestling, but there is still Josh and Kevin, and there is other things going on in our lives, and if I feel like it's necessary that we put it on the podcast, then there's no one to really tell me I can't do that. So,
you're your own boss.
I'm my own boss. We're our own team. We decide what we want to talk about, and I just thought this was necessary and okay to do this kind of stuff, and I'm sure that we will get messages from our Brainbuster pals about this one, because we are like family in a sense of the short time that we've been well, not the short time, it's been about a month now, with our Brainbuster pals. We all care for one another, and I think that's become the biggest thing, the biggest part of this that's just blows my mind all the time, is that we all genuinely love and support one another, which is really cool, because we're all part of different parts of the world. We've never seen each other in that sense. So, yeah, I'm sure that when we put this out, there will be a lot of that from them. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say or what else to end this, but, I hope that this conversation has helped someone, and trust me, we've got a big week next week, so it'll be back to normal next week, back to wrestling. Don't worry, because we'll be back on your Sunday night, Kevin. Of course, we'll be recording Reverb Rewind, and the poll is open for another day or so between WrestleMania 17 and WrestleMania 24. I think I know what we're going to be watching, but I kind of assumed that from the start. I'm not mad.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not mad either. Not at all. Not by a long shot.
But hey, there's still a day.
Better feel.
Still a day. It still could... They don't call it a comeback for nothing. The other WrestleMania could do it. But, regardless, we're going to be happy and fun again next week. We won't get so dippity down for you next week, because it's fucking WrestleMania week. So,
Damn right.
It's going to be a fun week. But that will kind of do us this week. Well, do us this bonus special episode kind of deal. And we'll catch you guys for WrestleMania next week. Kevin, if you could describe WrestleMania week in one word, what would you describe it as?
Oh my god, I feel like I'm on Family Feud or something. Gargantuan, because
Holy
there's just
shit. That is a word.
It is a word. I swear to God, it's a word.
That is a word.
Oh,
Let me get out my Webster's dictionary. Like, whoa.
There's so much going on.
There's a lot.
Not just in WWE, but all over the wrestling world. There's so much shit going on.
Mm-hmm. That's really, really, man, that has blown me away, that word. But yeah, we'll catch you guys next week, and all different times. Make sure you go to my Twitter, or I believe it's on Kevin's Twitter as well. You'll find the WrestleMania schedule, and you'll find out where to find us. And make sure, go and subscribe to Brainbuster Radio right now, if you haven't, because you're dumb if you haven't. Go and subscribe right now, and starting Monday, April 1st, you can start with Omega Luke, who is a wonderful ray of light in this world. I adore that man. He is a wonderful, wonderful dude. And he's going to kick us off, and you can catch me and Kevin on Brainbuster Radio on Fridays. Every Friday, you're going to catch us. Every single Friday. We're never going to miss a day. Are we, Kevin? We're always going to be committed. Every Friday.
We're gonna be here till the day the sun burns out.
Exactly. Till there is no more Earth anymore, me and Kevin will be on Brainbuster Radio on Fridays. Make sure you go subscribe to that wherever you get podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast wherever you get podcasts. Oh, I do have one more thing that I want to bring up. So, as many of you are aware, the Bella Twins started a podcast, and I was like, really? The Bellas are having a podcast now? Okay, so I listened to it, and I enjoyed it, but oh man, do they have some learning to do. I'm not saying I'm great at podcasting, but they have some learning to do on how to do a podcast. That is a shitstorm. They just have segments, and they have all these different branches of things, and they're trying to do a lot in like 45 minutes. But I just don't know why I wanted to bring that up, but I listened to the Bella Twins podcast. It was an experience that I'll never forget. They talked about all different kinds of things. They talked wrestling, they talked their reality show, they talked about John Cena, they talked about one-night stands. It was a whole thing. It was a mess. It was a mess.
So I might have to tune in. That all sounds pretty
if you
good.
want to just listen to just a random bunch of words, listen to the Bellas podcast. Am I going to listen to it next week? I mean, probably. But they certainly have some learning to do on how to do podcasts, because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. It was just a shitstorm.
I'm sure that, well, Bellas, if you're listening to the show, which I know you are.
Yeah, of course they are.
There's no doubt in my mind that they are. Hit up Josh for some podcasting tips.
Yeah, I'm happy to come on your show. You can come on here. I don't give a shit. Bree, Nikki, their mum, whoever. Sister-in-law, hey, sign me up. No, it was fine. I just thought I'd bring it up because I was like, I know people know I'm fans of the Bellas, and when I seen the Bella Twins have a podcast, I was like, yes, I'm gonna listen to it. And the judgment, throw at me. I don't give a shit. I don't care. I have no shame in my game. I'll listen to whoever's podcast I want to. But yeah, okay. On that note, what an outro talking about the Bella Twins on this bonus edition. Of course, I had to end it with wrestling. We will catch you guys on our very special week next week. So, peace out.